Hello, and welcome to another month of Oscilloscope. My name's Ed Wright. I'm joined this evening by Neil Browning, who, for those of you native to North Wales, which is where we're currently based, you may well have come across him as a guitarist, pianist, general multi-instrumentalist, who is co-hosting with me today. So, yeah. Welcome, Neil. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah. It's one of these things that some people think I'm a trumpet player, some people think I'm a guitarist, and it just depends where they know me from, really. But
absolutely,
I like doing all sorts of stuff.
I've only just this very afternoon, in fact, seen a video with you playing the accordion as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, so a man of many talents. I mean, I primarily think of you as a folk musician. Would that be true or accurate, or
I suppose
is that slanderous?
No, I'll do anything for money. No, it's what I've done the greatest variety of, I suppose. I mean, in my time, I've done a lot of different folk things. I've done things in theatres. Doing music, theatre music on stage or whatever. I've done a bit of that. Written some music for Welsh Channel 4 a while back. That sort of thing. And also sort of write more classical, inverted commas, sorts of things as well sometimes.
Absolutely.
Rock, anything really. I'm up for anything.
Brilliant. So yes, it's great to have you along for this, and welcome to everybody in internet land. For anybody who's not quite sure what we're all up to here, basically Oscilloscope is an evening of experimental electronic music. It was initially set up way back when, which is over 4 years ago now, as a place for people to come along and experiment and try new works in front of a sort of an audience of peers and a forgiving audience, and that you could actually try things and people would then be able to talk to the composers and the artists, give feedback, ask about things. So you could sort of get into really in-depth, nice stuff about sort of the equipment or the philosophy behind things. And when lockdown struck, we'd already been trying to sort of stream something. So we've luckily managed to go completely digital now at the minute, as we're still sort of in lockdown here in the UK. And yeah, it gives us great joy to be able to carry on doing stuff and have all you people in here watching and listening, and be able to welcome various different people from all over the world, which you wouldn't previously have been able to do in the top left-hand corner of Wales in quite the same way. So we have 4 fantastic artists coming up. I should also just say, before I forget and whatnot, if any of you have potted here thanks to Roger Hughes and Keg Records sharing the link for us as well, thank you very much to them. That's completely just as a community thing. They've done it and sort of shared things out, so thank you very much. Yeah, all the usual things with sort of internetness and give things a like and a share and whatnot. But yeah, we're all doing this for the fun of it, and it's great. And please, if you do want to ask anything, we are going to be interviewing and chatting with the artists after each of their work. So stick stuff in the comments. We have Rob in the background who's going to be vetting those and putting them up on the screen, and then Neil and I can bounce them to people. And yeah, so first off, we have what I'd probably describe as just an acousmatic electronic piece, which is really exciting, by a gentleman named Yanis, who I met at a festival in New York 3 years ago now. And it's really nice just to be able to kind of catch up again with people across the world, and we'll be hearing from Yanis afterwards. So, yeah, have I forgotten anything, Neil, or is there anything you'd like to say before we jump into it?
I'd just like to reassure everybody I know nothing about any of this stuff, really. I'm here as the person who doesn't know what all the knobs do.
Absolutely. So, no, and that's a very vital thing, because, yeah, otherwise I could just completely fall down a rabbit hole of geeking out, and 90% of the people out there wouldn't have a clue what's going on. So we have interesting, creative, articulate people such as yourself, Neil, to keep me in check, you know. So please do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So without further ado, let's hear Yanis's piece, and yeah, we'll have a chat with him afterwards. Janis Andriotis, thank you very, very much. That's a wonderful piece. Sorry, I think you're on mute, I'm afraid. The standard stereo catchphrase.
There you go.
There we are. Thank you very much. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that. Before I jump in and ask any questions, is there anything you want to sort of say about the piece that you think people should kind of know to absorb it or engage with it, or what are your feelings about it?
Well, for the most part, that's a piece for live electronics and alto flute. It was my dissertation piece, and the main element here is the human voice. Although the piece is like for alto flute, as you have heard and realized, I'm always fascinated about those nuances in the human voice. And I wanted to find a medium to project the human voice through an amplified flute. Not so much the words, but the sonic characteristics of voice. So that was the main focus. And at the same time, I was experimenting with, for the performance, I'm using Max MSP. And it's a combination of real-time processing and pre-recorded materials. So a lot of those things are happening in real time. And I wanted to find a way to make Max a bit more easy to use and convenient, because I have struggled as a student to make Max work. And also, you go in a conference, you have like 10 minutes between sound checking and everything falls apart. So I said to myself, you have to find a way to do that more efficiently. So part of my dissertation, other than the composition of the piece, was actually to create a platform using Max MSP that makes this whole process much easier. And I'm publishing that, and it's kind of free for the public to use if you go into, I call it the sandbox. And the idea is like the whole system just takes care of things for you. So you can experiment during performance, like you can literally change things last minute and it won't affect what comes before or after.
That's cool.
Because that was a very main concern. Like, you change one parameter and then everything collapses.
Yeah.
The system is built also to automatically take care of mistakes for you. And if you really mess up something, it will only mess up that particular thing you changed. So these two elements were the basic things people should know about the piece, like the composition and also the platform used with Max MSP.
Cool.
Of course, I don't have a video of the piece, but it was a performance. What you just heard, yeah.
No, that's ace. Neil, you sound like you're about to dive into something.
Well, that's just answered one of the things I was going to ask, Yanis, that whether this was a performance or a flute performance.
Correct.
Voice.
That's my wife playing, Alisa.
Right.
I wrote a piece for her, and she helped me compose the piece a lot. It was like a two-way collaboration. I prefer to compose this way. I usually collaborate with performers that are like very good at what they're doing, and I trust them to know their instrument more than I do their instrument. Mm-hmm. So I will rather just dive in and experiment and say, hey, what do you feel comfortable playing? What do you like playing? And I will make the best out of what you can provide for me, instead of me just composing a piece and asking for someone to play. I think that's a more interactive way for me, and that's how this piece was composed as well.
Absolutely, I understand that. I write music with my wife Meg as well, different kind, but it's much more fun that way as well, and you get things you wouldn't normally.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
It's also good. It struck me. It's very human sounding piece. It's like there's a sound world there, kind of behind it, but the voice and the flute is very much what's in center stage, isn't it?
Correct. That's what it is. And I'm not sure. I mean, that's not easy to detect, but all of these drones that you hear behind happening, they actually derive from advanced audio processing, but it's human voice just stretched a lot.
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
So all of these things, even if you cannot recognize the human element behind it, it just adds to this voice, as you said, like the presence of the human voice.
Lovely. Yeah.
So when you talk about this this sort of platform that you're using and building it to sort of evolve and change with that,
correct?
How much of that is sort of baked into the composition? I mean, it sounds like you're having something you can update and tweak on the way. I mean, to what extent is that? To what extent do you think that that's actually like changing the composition, or is that just changing something that makes the piece what it is?
Well, it has to do with the workflow. Like for me, it's very important during a rehearsal, because that's the part that you actually put the piece in the platform, the Maximus P patch together. It's like, oh, I failed that, I have to fix it. And usually as a student, for me, it was like, oh, let me get back to you 2 days later because I cannot fix it on the fly. And that had to change. So the idea is like, I started experimenting and exploring other platforms like Super Collider or the AWs. And I thought to myself, what am I missing that I don't have here that's actually useful for me? And it was this ability to be able to use only what you need for the time that you need it. Bear with me for a moment. That means if I have a very advanced signal processing with a very specific signal chain, I'm not the composer that will keep that thing from beginning to end. Even if it's the same modules, I want to keep constantly changing them. So instead, what I have is like what I call like a DSP core, and I have 4 or 8 of them. And those DSP cores can load max patches instantly as you go. And each one of those max patches has different modules and signal routings. So in real time, I'm just keep changing and loading the DSP engine. It's not like a consistent delay or consistent modulation that's happening. And of course, that allows for, during the rehearsal, you just load that patch, you tweak a few numbers, you play back instantly. You don't have to run the patch from the beginning to end. It's like instant. You just hear the results. And then both you and your performer agree, and you're like, yes, we like it. You click save, and that's it. Like the patch will take care of saving that, loading it at the proper time, writing the code for you, and you're done. You don't have to do anything else.
Nice.
Are there any hints of actual words in the human voice part?
No, I didn't want to create any association with words or this kind of everyday. So I very specifically instructed my wife, Alyssa, to just use vocalizations, not words.
Yeah. I remember when I was working with some dancers once in Yale College in Wrexham, they were just beginning a project working with a John Cage piece, I think it was, which I can't remember what it was called, but it was just using, rather than the long vowel sounds, he'd just taken the consonants, the hisses, and all that stuff. And listening to the piece, some people heard words in it all the time, and
really?
Some just didn't. They thought it was vocalization, and it was interesting how different those reactions could be.
Could be, yeah. I think it's more a universal approach when you have vocalizations versus words, because of the language and what the words can mean to different cultures. So I just prefer to keep it more open wide, and then everyone can just assume things or make their own thing.
But then even when it's sort of just stuff that is non-verbal, but it's still an utterance. There's still an awful lot of derived meaning that you find in there, I think. I find it very strange that sort of just that level of impetus that you can get even just between sort of hearing somebody breathing normally or somebody going, there's that, even just those really subtle kind of things. I mean, that kind of transcends language. So that's kind of almost feels more visceral than having some sort of text in there, in a way.
I am the same way. Agreed.
Yeah.
Hey, we're all on the same sheet. Good. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One from Andrea Andrick. Nice work. Can you tell us a bit about the performer who played the flute part?
Yeah.
Well, I would assume you can probably tell us an awful lot about the performer who played the flute part. But yeah.
She's right here now. That's my wife, Alyssa. She played the alto flute, and she helped me compose the piece as well. So lots of her ideas, as I explained earlier, are actually her playing. She came to Oklahoma a long time ago to start her master's degree. Then she moved to Florida State, that's where she actually graduated from. She got her master's from Florida State flute performance. And since then, whenever I need a flute player, she's standby for me to play and perform.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Techie one from JJ. Is the multi-DSP setup on bespoke hardware, e.g. DSP farm, mod duo type outboard, etc.?
I need a little bit of clarification here on a few things. I don't understand the question very well. So
yeah, I know what you mean. I'm not sure either. Maybe Jay could get back to us. But
Jay, sorry, can you specify?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
For performance purposes, I mean, it's not mandatory. The patch will work with any interface, but I bought a Universal Audio Apollo interface, which is my dedicated live electronics interface. Because I can do real-time direct signal out with very nice EQs and compressors and nice preamps, and most importantly, the reverbs. I can load like extremely nice reverbs. What you heard there was like a combination of a Lexicon 224 and a EMT 140 plate, for example, which I do consider part of my composition, the sound of the reverb, especially when you want to highlight the vocal elements here. It's very important. It's not just a reverb. It's part of the vocal sound.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that thing, and actually the way I use it, like I send variable amounts of signal through the max path to the reverbs. So the reverb also is changing during time. It's not just consistent. That will be at least 10 to 15% less CPU on my native computer CPU, just because of that.
Yeah.
Which then allows me to have more DSP processing into the max patch. So dedicated hardware, my Apollo interface for sure. I'm not sure I understand the other part of the question. Can you bring up that up, please?
So somewhere there.
DSP formal. I think that's the only part of the actual hardware that I'm using. Then the rest is happening internally into Maximus PH or digital processing.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and it's actually really interesting to hear you say about the reverb being an integral part of it, because it felt like it was in a really nice environment. It felt really kind of crisp and airy sort of sound recording, but it's not. I've always felt reverb is slightly sort of an element, an environment that something is in, rather than necessarily a fundamental part of the composition. It always goes into a sort of mixing, mastering bucket in my head slightly, which, apart from doing Rob's ball, reverb is always integral, especially shimmers. Yes.
Well, for me, it's like the timing and the way I usually like to combine more than one reverb, sometimes delay on top.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is like the way the sound decays and the warmth of the sound that you get on specific frequency ranges also helps the performer with pacing of the phrasing, how they're going to perform. And that's part of the composition, how you're going to react, when you're going to breathe, when you're going to start again. That's part of the performance. So for me, those two elements just go together. They're not separate.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yannick Christoph.
Andrew Hooker, fantastic piece. Okay, yes.
I
Praise
appreciate
indeed.
it, Andrew.
Great. And JJ, beautiful. Yeah, cool. So I think, wow, yeah, lots of love coming through for this on the text.
I appreciate it.
And yeah, if you want to go and hear any more of Yanis's music, it's going along the bottom there at the minute. And I'm sure we'll be sort of floating around the internet as and when. I understand you're currently redeveloping your website, so there's nowhere for people to go directly.
Sorry, I just put my website down like 2 weeks ago because if you see my Facebook page, like I just, the last year I'm actually doing a lot of audio engineering and recording because that's one of my passions. I really like producing music, not only composing music.
Yeah.
And I had to take down my website to make it like this dual mode, like who I am as a composer and also as an audio engineer, as a studio, so people can come to me. So the website is down right now. Sorry about that. Facebook will be the closest you can get.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to go and see any more of his work, then by all means check that out. Yanis, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation.
Really interesting chat.
Yeah,
and I understand. Yeah, I understand you've got lots of more kind of academic stuff going on later today. So, given that you're over in the States, thank you very much for taking the time out to come and join us. So, yeah,
my pleasure. My pleasure. Have a good
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. That was thoroughly enjoyable. I like that.
Yeah.
It seems to have brought a smile to your face as well, Neil. So that's good.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it has to everybody out there. So that is great, and yeah, really fascinating piece. Great to see stuff going out under label for Seamus as well, as you might have seen from the title there. So again, it's another place worth checking out. Yes, next up we have a couple of pieces with more of a live feel to them, with an artist doing their thing on the camera. So we have Andreas Monopoulos, who is joining us from Corfu, and we have a couple of shortish pieces of his. So first up, we have Noisy Turntablism, which is a wonderfully descriptive title, and yeah, I'd suggest that kind of does what it says on the tin. And it's not just my poor gig notes that have just said, noisy turntablism, because it's the sort of thing I'd scribbled down by accident. So, yeah, next up, we have Andres Monopoulos and Noisy Turntablism.
They felt it was demons? I mean, the Pentecostal church is pretty literal, right?
Yes, I would say nobody directly said demons, but yeah, I guess that's Satan's influence in the world. Satanic daddy and their money choices I have made. I think these are things that I have lived with. Yes, I've done a lot.
It didn't work, obviously.
Every word, I mean, from how you ate to what you watched on TV, very, very controlling. And I was the person that was willing to do all of those things, and he would also make comments about, that he was kind of like going to be the figure in my life that restored my ability to relate to men.
Hello.
Hello, Andres.
Respect.
Thank you
Hello.
so much.
Thank you
That's,
too.
Really, really fascinating pair of pieces.
It's fun to look yourself on the screen.
It's a very strange experience. Yeah, no. I really enjoyed that. I mean, there's sort of a wealth of equipment on display in the second one, especially. I was quite intrigued because of this sort of 3D, no, not 3D, 360 camera with the first one. Couldn't quite see what you were playing. What did you have in your setup there on the first
Actually,
one?
the first video. First of all, thank you for having me, and thank
Oh no, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
The first one is a bit of experiment. Sorry, my English. It's supposed to be kind of a live and sound installation at the same time, me play with 6 or 8 turntables using this funny, silly thing, which is a piece of metal with a screw that you stick on the turntable and you don't let the arm go through, so you stick the needle. So through to the coronavirus, I didn't do the installation or live. I don't know how to explain it, how to describe it. So I make this video as like an experiment. So the audience couldn't see, but the video is a 360, so you can navigate through the room, which is 4 versions of me playing the same track at the same time, using a virtual ambisonic setup, so you can also turn the stereo image of what you are seeing and what you are hearing using this, and then I'm stacking the needle. So I'm really improvising on a piece that I make a long time ago by 4. In other words, I'm destroying the vinyl, the needle, and the track and the piece.
But in so doing, making another piece, which is
Yeah. It was an experiment to see how it will be if I supposed to make it live. So I make this video and it works. It was quite difficult to make it anyway, but it works, and it was interesting. It was interesting.
Absolutely, and it just flashed up on there. There is the link for
okay.
the VR video in the chat, which presumably can you do that as VR with sort of a normal sort of headset through YouTube, is it? Or
through YouTube, through stereo through the headphones, you can do a VR navigation of the video and of the sound at the same time. It's quite weird track though. It's quite strange noises, but okay.
Okay, that's later this evening sorted and planned.
Yeah, people can follow the link on the description. I think they can see the video.
Yeah.
Yeah,
any thoughts, Neil?
Yeah, well, I'm going to show my age here, I suppose, that clicks and pops mean certain things to me. And it's like, on the one hand, it's good to feel that we know that that's part of the performance, so it's okay, and it gives some actual rhythm and periodicity to the sound, which is often lacking in this sort of music, I feel. But on the other hand, it just so totally reminds me of everything I hate about vinyl. Records jumping. But another memory occurred to me that when I was a teenager, I remember borrowing a Santana album from a friend of mine, and it was Caravanserai. I know that. And as I was playing it, I realized this instrumental bit's going on for ages and ages. And then I realized it was actually jumping and making a little loop, and it was very hypnotic. And I realized that, and I thought, this is great though. I'll just let it play, and it was wonderful. And there was, so it reminded me of that as well.
Yeah, I think there's something very interesting hiding there, isn't there? In that, what sort of with the availability of alternative technologies and ways of consuming things, what was one society's horrible glitch because there was no other choice, all of a sudden now can turn into a creative thing. But then you don't
rediscovering the wheel. It's like rediscovering the wheel, very simple things. And okay.
Yeah, but also kind of intriguing how that kind of meaning shifts so much to different people with different experiences. Was the disc created specifically for this performance?
Not really, but the disc is a vinyl record I released lately. You can see the link on Bandcamp. I call it Mokum Untuned, and the track is the Untuned is the name of the album.
Which I believe do you have copies of this if people want it?
Yes, I have it on Bandcamp.
Smoothly done, well done.
So it's important that I have a copies because this way I did the whole video and the performance is a way that you can destroy a record and the needle. So okay, I have a few copies, so I don't care, and it's my vinyl record.
Yeah.
So the track is really, let's say, pure, old style electroacoustic piece. So I use this track, the electroacoustic piece, which I can't talk about it, but I don't know if it would take too much. That and I modified it in another dimension, which is like turntablism, noise, glitches, and stuff like that. So the track is not, the disc is not really made for the performance. It's just a disc that I played on it.
That's cool.
Yeah, let me
mean,
tell you just a few things about the piece. It's a piece that I made. I like when I make some pieces, a part of the live performance, I like to have kind of a theme or like an idea behind. So this came by when I was in a big venue, an old theater, and I saw a very beautiful old piano, which a lot of musicians have playing on it. In the side, on the corner, covered with plastic, and on top of it was a ladder and some colors and dirty. So the whole idea came from that, and I make a piece that it could be like a time lapse of piano's story and emotions. So most of the sound, if not all the sounds, are coming from the body of the piano, of an old piano. So this is the main idea of this electroacoustic piece, the Untuned.
Yeah. Moving on to the second piece quickly, because I'm aware we're sort of getting pinched for time, and we've just talked lyrically about the first one. There's a wonderful array of kit on display in the second piece. Yeah, there's some interesting light stuff going on there. What's that
Okay,
doing?
the first piece...
Purely being attracted to the flashy, shiny things, you know.
No, look, this flashy stuff is also a nice way to attract the people, but it's the audience.
Totally, it works.
It's not the main. It's not the main. It's not the purpose.
No, totally.
Anyways, I need to thank Yorgos Fragiskos, a friend of mine, that he took the video, and the place where the live was going on, it was in Athens, at a place called Six Dogs, with a wonderful sound system. So you cannot really hear the sound, but the sound was amazing. Anyway, I used to make my own sound devices, like DIY electroacoustic or sound generators or noise makers. So most of the times I play with this. Lately I have some ready-made stuff and I feel a bit shy, but like, okay, I play with other ready-made things. So mostly I play with the things that I made, which sometimes are like oscillations, or sometimes could be everyday objects, or any kind of noise generators, or not only noise, or tunes or untunes. It could be a springs, or springs that make the reverb, or many other things. So that's why you see a lot of blinking things. On this piece, I play a lot with electromagnetic waves that I took them back through the guitar pickups. And the other main thing, I play with live radio tuning, which is very risky because you really tune live and you don't know what's going to happen. I have a thing though, that most of the times I tune to some religion's radio station. I'm not really a religious guy, and I do it as a bit as a comedy, but I really respect everybody's opinion. So the thing is that they say strange things with strange voices. And this thing with the other things, it makes another nice combination, which sometimes brings out some sub meanings that modifying the meaning of what they say, if you understand the words anyway. So also playing live with radio, you have all these signal noises and all these commercial music interactions that makes it a nice improvisation, which is quite risky because it can ruin your life. But I like to risk it. It's a part of it, so it's really one-off.
So is that with sort of FM or AM radio or
Yeah,
digital?
actually, sometimes I use FM and AM. I have a few radios. I have a high frequency radio which can take signals from even from China and Russia, so you can hear very weird sounds. Or some signal radios. I don't know if you know them. They broadcast signals or numbers or speeds. Or I have a FM and AM that I have been modify them, so you can tune them, but you can touch parts like circuit bending. So you can touch part of the circuit or body contacts, and you can detune or jump to the other radio station or put a CV signal and control it by the synthesizer.
No, that's
So
cool.
that makes some nice random patches. And mostly I play with this and some drone machines that I make and some oscillation, some light sensors, and kind of. Yeah, this live, it was especially played in a setup that I make 2 years ago, and I call it suitcase improvisation, which I have a suitcase and I have it like one setup inside, because I have things and every time you want to play, you change. So
absolutely.
And every time what should I play, what should I bring. So I limit, not really limit. I put some things in there that I say, okay, I will play with this. Even with a limitation, will be the reason to be more productive, more. I don't know,
focused.
More focused on this.
That's what I was thinking.
More focused. Like you have these tools and you're going to play with that. So this is a suitcase. You can, and then you can unfold it and play. And
Rob, who does looks after a lot of the tech and the comments on here, has literally got a box for his kit that I'm sure I could actually fit inside, and often turns up and puts it down, and that's it. Which is a very, very nice way of working, actually. But I don't think I could carry anything that big.
No, it's quite big though. Anyway, and anyway, it's joyful because you unfold it and you don't need 3 hours to do the setup. Yeah. And then I also put some layers and layers and it's like a cartoon story. And you can make very nice tunes. So the setup is important because the live is improvisation, but you always have a kind of a line that you will follow.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. Amen to that, says Rob Spall. Oh, that's brilliant. Anything you want to ask Neil before we wrap things up?
I definitely want to say I love the idea of reacting to the live radio, so you just don't know what's going to come out. I think that's brilliant. I love doing those sorts of inputs which you can't control with actual words. That's
sometimes some audience, they think they have samples because they fit so perfectly. And it was one gig in a venue that I was tuning randomly, and I was catching like some news, and it was all these things that are in matter every time, and it was all the phrases. And people were like, "Oh, you had this sample is very perfectly placed." And like, no, it was live, just live.
It ain't going to happen again.
No. Oh, Lee Green, yummy stuff. I take that as a great compliment. Incredibly inventive from JJ.
I understand some of them, they are weird, okay, but it's a part of the story.
Clicks and cuts rule. Yes, great stuff, fella.
Thank you.
Oh, it's brilliant. So there's lots of love coming from that. So Mark,
thank you.
Lovely compliments there, and I'm sure there will be more coming up on there as time goes by and other people watch back and see things. So Andreas, thank you so much for a wonderful set of pieces and a really nice chat. And it's a pleasure. Thank you. And I've
nice to meet you.
Absolutely, and in our group thing that we've got on here, I put in there as a Zoom for afterwards if people want to chill out and have a beer and a chat between us lot. Then we'll come along if you want. So Andreas Manopoulos, thank you very much.
Bye everybody. Thank you for listening.
Great. So that takes us to halfway, and what a halfway it's been so far. I'm really enjoying this. Before we go on, I probably should mention that we've got a link to coffee.com, which is going across the bottom there. All that is literally, we are all doing this for fun. Nobody's getting paid for anything. All the artists are donating their time and their music for free. We're all doing this for free. We're not getting sponsorship or anything. But if you are liking this and you do want to chip in a bit towards the running costs of sort of the virtual studio that we've got here and things, you can go to coffee.com/oscilloscope and literally sort of buy us a coffee, as it were. So be that sort of 50p, pound, whatever, $1, depending on where you live, please do chuck it in. It's one way of giving back something to a bit of the artists and everybody who puts their effort in. But that's totally optional, and if you can't do that, give us a like or a share or one of those things. And just keep coming along, basically. But it does help things go round. So next up, we have, again, another couple of works and a sort of live performances. And I apologize for his surname because I will get it horribly wrong. By Gintas Kratavicic, I think. I apologize. I tried. I'm sure he will come and tell me properly in a bit. So we have a couple of works by him. Fascinating audio trigger stuff. The first one is entitled Routine, and we shall have a chat with him afterwards. So without further ado, Gintas. Thank you very, very much, Gintas, and welcome. Yeah, where are you joining us from?
What?
Where are you joining us from?
From Lithuania, I'm joining you.
Yeah, so it's I don't think we've had anybody from Lithuania doing stuff with us before. So congratulations, you are the first.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
No, it's a very lovely couple of pieces. Yeah, and as you mentioned before, English is clearly not your first language.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I will try and be as kind as possible.
Thank you.
What might be easy for some people if they really want to ask something specific, it may be easiest to put it in the chat, and maybe then you could read it later and have time to translate it, or whatever's easier for you. So yeah, yeah. Two very, very interesting pieces. How do you make them work? Because you obviously have the keyboard, but that is changing and evolving over time. So how does that happen?
I'm playing with Plugware Bidula program, and it is, how to say, it is like you see it's MIDI keyboard and MIDI controller, and it is connected a signal to VST plugins simply, and you see and get clearly how I'm working with it. That's all, because it is, how to say, some kind of improvisations. Yeah. So
very interesting. Because
yeah.
it feels very, a lot of it feels very structured, but also like it is evolving like an improvisation. There are a lot of bits where there's frantic texture, and then it kind of goes, so it shapes very well, you know. So
yeah, it is, how to say, it is live. I'm playing with, I'm not using mostly any samples. I'm playing with synthesized sounds, and how to say, and this, it's improvisation, but sometimes it can look like compositions. It's sometimes, how to say, it's not looks, but it is compositions. But it is live played.
Yes, because I find there's improvisation there and composition somewhere there. And there is a lot of space between, you know. You can have something totally made up or totally composed, but very often there's that to and fro between. Neil, you sounded like you were about to say something. I rudely interrupted on my high horse.
No, I'm very, very pleased to hear things which are live. I think that's so important. But what I was going to say was, a good improvisation is a composition. It has to have that, has to have the shape, doesn't it? And you're reacting to the sounds as you make them, and that's you're going to, a good improviser will make sure that it flows in the right sort of way and makes sense, I think.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's
So how much? Sorry,
as a keyboard player, I'm looking at it and thinking, what noises do each of those keys make? But it doesn't look like it's actually like that, and it's not each key is not actually one sound, is it? Or is it?
It's all the time it's generating. It's not that key has some kind of sound. It's not that way. It is every time is it changing.
Yeah.
I do not know exactly what sound will be when I push it down. But some kind I imagining what can be it. Yeah.
Well, that's it.
So how are you using the keyboard then? Because you say you don't know what the sound will be, but you obviously have low sounds and high sounds and different things within a normal keyboard. How does that relate to what you're using that as an instrument?
It's maybe just looks so, but it can be low sounds upstairs, how to say, and high sounds down. It's depends. It's not. It's just maybe it looks so. It's
no.
Yeah, but It is. Yeah, and really, I just imagining what kind of sounds can be, but I'm not sure what it is will be. Yeah, how to say, it's from many times of playing. Something now. I don't know, but not exactly. Yeah.
Have you ever tried letting somebody else play the keyboard and see if they can react to it and produce a musical improvisation without knowing anything about how having any previous experience of the setup?
Sorry, not quite understand. If I hear it before,
no.
someone...
If you have you ever tried to letting another person have a go on the same keyboard and see if they can control it in the same sort of way?
On mine keyboard, you mean?
Yeah.
I just letting sometimes people to play sometimes, but it's, you know how to say, it's I spent mostly on that maybe 10 years for playing, so it's you must know who expect from keyboard.
Yeah. So
you can play. For me, I am showing it, how to say, openly what I am doing, but everyone can choose and do it the same. For me, it's no problem.
Yeah.
So it looks like you were triggering sounds with the keys. I mean, I was guessing it looked like there was a delay or a feedback on a...
It is mostly granular synthesis. Some VST plugins, but mostly of granular synthesis. Yeah.
Ah, right, because there was some controls going along on the top there. So that was
sure.
Over the granulation.
When I said that, I'm triggering sound from synthesizer sounds. It is not sample, like I said. It's just I'm beginning of sounds is, for me, it's keyboard. Yeah. Synthesizers, virtual. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think we had the link for that software as well go past, didn't we? So there we are. So if people do want to go and have a look and see, then there it is, which is really handy. And that's one of the nice things about this sort of work, is that you do see people doing stuff and learn new ways of doing things, because coming from a more traditional acousmatic composition side, as a student, I would have spent sometimes weeks trying to get a texture that goes... You're cutting up sample after sample after sample, go pound that bit to there, pound that to... Sitting there and like Pro Tools or whatever going. And it's really interesting seeing the different possibilities that can then come to what's essentially a very similar gesture. It's not the same sounds and it's not the same placements, but we're doing similar things, which is really quite intriguing, and different methods of getting there. So that's really nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ah, there we are. Do you have a basic structure in mind at the start of the piece?
No.
Hey!
I do not have it.
So it really is very improvised.
I am hearing the sound, and I how to say, going over there where is sound leading me. Yeah, some kind of.
That's interesting. I mean, I sometimes find
everything in the process. Yeah.
Oh, my ears are fizzing like sherbet. Delicious. That's a lovely compliment. Make it never stop. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, nice. Thank you, Lee. That's great.
It's more on my YouTube. It's more samples of it.
Right.
YouTube channel. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have the link for your YouTube channel going across the bottom there somewhere? There we are.
Yeah.
So if you do want to go and have a look at more of Quintess's work, please do. It's there. It's on YouTube. There's also quite a bit of your work across the internet. Having had a quick look the other day and going exploring. yeah, there's a really lovely body of work there. So yeah, thank you very, very much for that.
Thank you very
And
much.
yeah, please feel free to join us later. And yeah, Gintas,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you so much. Cool. Right, that just about takes us to our last artist. However, I probably should remember to say at some point, we do have the Oscilloscope deep dive coming up on the 15th of next month. So basically, it's quite similar to this. However, rather than having various different pieces and various different artists, it's literally one artist with one track, and myself and Ben, the co-host, literally having a long form pre-recorded ramble talking to the composer about it, which is quite nice, and it kind of gives us access to be able to do and ask some of those sort of slightly more deep questions into the work and fall down rabbit holes to our heart's content, because we pre-recorded it and yeah, and sort of set aside the afternoon and have a bit of a witter. So that's coming up then. However, that leaves us with our final piece, and it gives me great pleasure to say it's actually by Charles Gershom, who works tirelessly behind the scenes, teching, bringing us in and out and queuing things up and doing all of that stuff. And it's really nice to actually have him have the opportunity to play something, because as is often the way, and I find this too, if you get involved in doing, and I'm sure you find it as well, Neil, you get involved in organising things, and then all of a sudden, not only do you not get time to play them, it sometimes feels a bit weird playing a gig you've set up, you know. You know, so it's a really great pleasure to introduce this. It's a live drone piece called Starblind 7, and it really is super hot off the press. I had a quick watch of it this afternoon with Charles, and yeah, I really liked it, and as a friend I couldn't really chat to him about it because we wanted to be able to have a chat about it on here. So yeah, I guess I'm probably just going to explode then. So without further ado, Charles Gershom and Starblind 7. And breaking the fourth wall, we have Charles, who's out from production land. Hi, how are you?
It's a bit weird being on the camera for once after
Yes.
a year of lurking behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And then all of a sudden we realised that you probably got the best camera out of all of us. It does look very slick. As a man who never uses it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was a great piece. You know, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, knowing you and knowing your work, it strikes me as very, I wouldn't say autobiographical, but it clearly brings together an awful lot of stuff that is very much part of your passions.
It's definitely been a piece which has followed on from a piece which followed on from a piece that followed on. And over the last few years, I've really been trying to form my kind of, you're always looking for the best setup, but my comfortable setup to create just sound narratives. And as I've done that, it's felt like it's got more and more and more personal. And a lot of it has been about working out why I like some of the sounds that I like and why I'm drawn to certain pieces of gear, especially the kind of the more DIY built glitchy stuff. And there's a couple of things that came together on this piece, which is a kind of from a personal point of view and from a gear point of view, where it coalesced a bit, and it felt like there was an opportunity to kind of finish it for this. There's a bit of a push.
Yeah.
I don't know which side to start on. I don't know if is there a particular end you want to come at it from.
I don't know. That sounds like a lead set up for Neil to jump in and ask. Go for it.
I think it's too short.
Yeah.
No, I mean, coming from my non-electronic background, really, I just love things that evolve and have that sort of rhythm coming in. And then I heard a perfect fifth, something I really recognised, but I just love the way these things evolve, and the visuals as well, just perfect. That was great. Just very subtly done, and I love it.
The duration is definitely something which is out of character, I think, for the kind of the sorts of things that I enjoy doing, because I would much prefer to perform it as a long, several-hour piece, as a live piece. And that feels like its more natural state. But I think it's kind of condensing and chopping a little segment. It feels like it's a segment out of a larger piece. I
think that's kind of that impression comes across really well, or did for me personally, with this feeling of this sort of quite staticky, noisy, timeless thing that could be a very, very long time base. And then you've also got this thing that feels like a time lapse of the stars going round. So you really have this impression that you could almost be doing that in real time for that time base rather than this one, if that makes any sense. I don't know whether that was deliberate or...
That was pretty much bang on, because it's... I like doing the long meandering performances, and the idea that over the last 10 years, especially with a project that I've worked on with my colleague Benjamin Buck, who's doing a deep dive in the next couple of weeks. One thing we've always done is this idea that you kind of get into that moment of the performance, and you're responding to what you're thinking about, what the world is going on around you, kind of literally translating your senses into some sort of sound. And when I've been trying to make these pieces, that's exactly what it is. So in this case, had it been a live piece, it would have been out in the middle of the night, several hours recorded, time-lapsed of the stars and its rotations. Now, sadly, we've had cloud for a few days, and it's not been quite perfect for it in the night time. So
it's going to be a supermoon, so of course we can't see it.
Yeah. So I had best laid plans and all that. So instead, I had to simulate it, which, in how I approach my practice, is, as far as I'm concerned, as good as real anyway. Because the idea that you can present a false reality as something that represents reality, it's a better representation of reality than something that is completely verbatim. kind of thing. It's and this is kind of why I want to grow these pieces out now. So, and it's very autobiographical in that it's a kind of literal representation of how I feel like when I'm trying to investigate the things that are going on out in the world. So at the moment, I am doing a lot of astrophotography and lots of astroarchaeology, and a lot of that is how do I look through all those thoughts, and it feels very much like a kind of like squinting into the sun, but in thought form, which is why it resonates with me a lot with the drones, because drones can be a huge cacophony of noise, and then you can just start picking out little bits here and there. And it's over the last year of really having the time and space of this all the stuff that's going on to dig into why I'm connected to these sounds and these devices, and it's very much a kind of sensory raw understanding processing, and then the sounds that come out feel like they're very, if you were to jab an electrode in and just record neurons firing, that sort of thing.
No, because I mean, I was sort of in the slightly privileged position of getting the odd photo of, I'm doing this, I'm working on the video for it. And I was looking at this kind of going, so is he actually just getting excited and geeking out about more astrophotography, or is this actually this? And I think this might actually be one of the same things, which was quite cool.
Yeah, it's a bit of a red herring, I suppose, because the subject matter actually in the video could have been anything, but for me, it's just capturing that moment of investigation. So it's what's present in mind at the moment, and I just noticed there's a comment that says, "Is the sky generated?" It's kind of generated. It's generated in that. The video is 3D rendered. It was all created in Blender. However, it was derived from there's a equirectangular photograph of all the stars that NASA have generated. It's a really beautiful 16K image you can unwrap and use as a cube map. And the contours of the hillside is actually the LiDAR data for the hills behind me, recreated into a landscape. So it's real in that it's real world data. So I would say generated, yes, but also from how I would present it, I'm quite content to call it also real.
I really like that. The fact that it could just be completely arbitrary and made up, and especially the hills bit, you could go, okay, there's any hill range, or indeed here's a set of lines. But actually just having that little kind of Easter egg hiding there. I mean, it feels a bit like when you go into places like the sort of the old cathedrals, and they've clearly worked on the stonework right up at the top that no one's ever going to see. But actually, it's because you want to get something right for which is really nice.
That's a really good analogy of the kind of the sound, the actual process of creating the sounds, because we all use so many different devices and so many different processes and connections, and often you only hear the output of it rather than like seeing that piece of stonework high up on a tower or something. And in this case, it's I got an Elmira synth a few months ago now, and I never really made friends with it. It wasn't gelling. I loved the interface, but I didn't feel like I had a connection to the process, and it felt like it was missing that little brick that was hidden away somewhere. So I ended up rebuilding the firmware and putting in my little brick, and it's transformed it into something that I now have a performative connection with. And now when I perform with it, it's even if the sounds are similar, there's just a tiny part of it which is more of a signature, which helps me get across what's going on in my head. If that makes sense.
Is that what you used to create most of the sound for this then?
Yes, all of the sounds for this piece came out of an Elmira 8. It's not Elmira, it's a Lyra 8. The Elmira, the kind of like cut down Lyra-ish clone sort of thing, and a Rebel Technologies Magus with a pure data patch on, which I use for lots of just kind of clicks, and it's all very square wavy, and then creating those kind of the frequencies where things start beating off each other, and they create the percussive sort of noises. Then there's not actually a percussion track. And it's interesting when you said, Neil, about the you heard the fifth come in. Now, as Ed knows, trying to play with me, I don't do notes. So, and actually, a little bit like where when Gintas was talking on the last one, when you press the button, you're not sure what's going to come out. And that's I really enjoyed that about his piece, because that's something I have a lot of affinity with. It's you kind of know where your cables are, you kind of know where your setup is, you know what the machine should do, but there's that moment when you press something and it might be different, it might take you by surprise. So you only have that split second moment to kind of respond to what's happening, then to then move on to the next bit of the piece.
Yeah.
So the fact the fifth came out of it was just as much a surprise to me as it was to you.
I really quite like that about a lot of the synthesis type way of working, because I mean, you kind of go, oh yeah, I can make all these sort of noises and glitches and different things, and yet you all of a sudden realise that okay, I'm doing this with this oscillator, but if I get another oscillator that's in a 1-to-2 relationship with this, which is just very obviously easy, simple mathematic thing to do, you'll get a fifth out of it, you know. You know, it's that sort of, yeah, you go halfway up the string, you get an octave and all those sorts of things, and sort of basic harmonics. And I mean, I was sitting listening to it, and I don't know whether it was, as we say, from having played and gigged and performed together quite a lot, I don't know, but even at the start of it, I was doing the whole, I can feel a tempo in here. This is before the actual beat came in, but there was something in there that you could feel it sort of really slow, about sort of maybe once a second, and like, and then something else landed, like, pretty sure that's actually just me reading into the sound, but you could actually, rather than that saying necessarily having a drum track, you know, which was really quite intriguing.
I have realised that over this last year of a lot of reflection on it, I do seem to, no matter what I do, drift in about towards about 60 to 70 BPM when it comes to the, creating the drone pieces.
Well, yeah, I think, to be honest, that's really logical. You know, if you're thinking about it being a kind of possibly, I mean, I'm going out on a limb here and potentially talking out of my hat. I'm sure there are many academic people who may well start screaming at me soon, but it feels very much, if it's a meditative practice, that you fit somewhere around roughly a tempo that's sort of kind of not necessarily a pulse, but it's in that ballpark.
It feels like feels a bit like that kind of resting heartbeat sort of feel.
It's exactly where I was going. Which puts us all into all sorts of dangerous pseudoscience territory. But in a worst case scenario, it's an interesting similarity.
Yeah, I do enjoy the opportunities that you get from such low tempos, because it means that you can then stack in much higher tempo little interludes and break it up in a much more dramatic way than you can if you're already at a higher tempo.
Yeah.
You can't deny the basic physics and maths of how the world is, and that's and the world is presupposed towards rhythm and simple mathematical relationships, and then which build on and become more complex relationships. But the basic things of rhythms and octaves and fifths, that's the simplest thing.
I've just seen JJ's comment on that. Maybe there's something to it, you know. I'm sure someone will cite a paper in the comments sooner or later. You know, tell me what for. Yeah, no, I totally agree. You know, yeah, that's glorious otherworldly soundscape. Yeah, I could go with that. Yeah,
I just noticed there's a question from Mark about using real-time sensors.
Oh yes,
yeah. There's I suppose it depends what you call a real-time sensor. The Elmira uses a lot of it's got capacitive sensors on it, so that's the kind of the main surface into it. And the Magus has got quite the patch that's on the Magus uses it's a lot of its CVs ins and outs to repatch on itself. So I suppose kind of sensors, but probably more that they're more control surfaces than sensors.
Which, having mentioned that, the whole Elmira thing, I seem to remember at one stage you were talking about putting the Elmira patch on GitHub. If
Yes,
people want
I
it.
have. Let me go.
Okay, so if people really did like that and want to, and happen to have an Elmira at home and happen to want to try putting that software on,
specifically, I didn't like the there was a random number generator deep in the oscillator which created a fizz that you couldn't get rid of, and so I've switched it around a little bit and moved it around so it's something you can bring in optionally and also have a kind of a bit more range on the oscillator, so you can take it right down to clicky, low frequency. I'll grab the GitHub link when I get off and post it in the comments.
No, absolutely, and obviously that goes with all the usual caveats of, well, if anything does go wrong, it was your choice to put it on there. But yeah, absolutely,
it's all on there as the Arduino source code. So you stick it in an Arduino IDE and flash it. It's all very, very nice and cozy.
Yeah, but if people are out there, because let's face it, this sort of stuff is all about sharing the knowledge and having a bit of fun and enjoying stuff, which that feels very much like that's part of that. Before we wrap up, Neil, is there anything else you want to ask or discuss or mention?
Well, I'm the person who doesn't know anything about the knobs and buttons of this sort of thing. The nearest I get to anything like this is using electric guitars with long repetitive echoes and things like that, like a la Robert Fripp meets Brian May sort of thing. But that's where I get the love of things that evolve, because that's why I like that. It's very controllable. I never did get on with loop pedals, but echoes. But I love things that just evolve, and you can make them do what you want to do gradually, and then occasionally it surprises you. So I absolutely understand wanting to get rid of a fizzy oscillator. If it's always there and you can't control it, that's
I don't mind the fizz if you can control it a bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. Yeah, it's the same with distortion on my favorite Echo guitar setting. It's just enough that if I wanted, I can bring it out manually by just playing a bit harder, and it's there, and it makes the difference. Yeah. But I must have I've had a lovely evening. I've had a great time with all these different kinds of things, and there's certain things I want to get back to, and you've reminded me of a certain thing I wanted to do with drum pads and things and samples and
that's cool.
ish. Yeah.
Awesome.
But that'll take time to set up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that pretty much brings us to the end. I really should remember and say thank you very, very much to all the artists that we've had tonight. So we've had Yanis Androitis, Andreas Monopolis, Gintas, whose surname I'm not even going to attempt to murder again, and Charles Gershom, who is here with us now. Going along the bottom, we've got the coffee.com/oscilloscope. If you do happen to have a pound or so to help towards the streaming costs, that'd be great. As ever, if not, don't worry. Give us a like or a share or something. Because we are all doing this for the fun of it, and it has actually genuinely been great fun. It's been a really nice, diverse evening, and thank you for joining us in Internet Land. Charles is breathing in like he's about to jump in. I've forgotten something.
I'm always lurking behind the camera clicking buttons and stuff, and don't often get to have a chance to actually thank you directly, because all those years ago you set up this amazing welcoming night in the greenhouse in Bangor, and I mean it's nearly 5 years now.
Yeah,
nearly 5 years. The number of artists that have come to Oscilloscope and performed at all kinds of levels, at wanting to get into the scene as
Totally.
indentured academics, and everything in between. It's a glorious scene with an amazing community that we've had. Just build and build and build, and especially through this last year of trying times, the number of artists that have come on, and it's my great joy that I get to preview all the work before it goes out. I upload it, and that's great fun, because often I don't actually let Ed watch the pieces if possible. So
some of them I've seen and come through, and others people submitted, and totally.
So I've got a moment in front of the camera. I just thought I'd like to big thanks to everyone who's been on here, and a big thanks for Ed for keeping us all together and keeping it going.
Oh, thank you. I feel like about to have Michael Aspel wander through the door with the big red book. Oh, cheers. On that note, I fear there's nothing else left to do. Artists and people, we're in the Zoom chat if you want to come and join us, chill out afterwards. I know that Andreas has already cracked a beer, so come and join us. Everybody in internet land, thank you very, very much. We're back the last Tuesday of each month, and there's the deep dive on the 15th of each month. And thank you so much. Bye.